Coming up next, an interview with a rock frontman about an 80s rock classic that is on the short list of the greatest opening lines ever. I mean, it's become a part of 80s lore. A song that everybody knows and sings along to every time it comes on the radio. From an album that made a mark when it was released as the biggest blockbuster of its time. It spent 15 weeks at #1, had 4 big singles. I'll tell you, one of the nicest guys in rock tells us the extraordinary story. Coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you've ever had your cassette tape eaten by your boombox, you're going to be right at home at this channel. Make sure that you subscribe below so you never miss out on our daily content. Check the bell and all that good stuff. Stories straight from the legends. We also have a Patreon. We'd love for you to take a look at that. You can become an honorary producer and have more content. It helps us keep it a daily channel. So there have been somewhere around 100,000 albums officially released in the rock era, give or take. A mere 15 of those have spent 15 or more weeks at the #1 spot. I'm talking about albums like Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, Michael Jackson, Thriller, Adele 21, Prince, Purple Rain, and REO Speedwagon, High Infidelity. High Infidelity was one of my first musical memories. It's one of the first albums I remember hearing all the songs and knowing it was the same band. I remember I was not even 5 years old. I was riding in my dad's truck as the radio played. I distinctly remember him saying, "This is a great song, listen to this." And he started to turn up the volume. It was slightly beyond what was safe for a 4-year-old kid. I was grateful. I was immediately smitten by the opening line of the song. Went a little something like this. Heard it from a friend who, heard it from a friend who, heard it from another, you've been messing around.
Heard it from another, you've been messing around.
The soaring, passionate vocals of one Kevin Cronin, followed by the blazing guitar of one Gary Richrath. By the time it got to the second chorus, we were both singing to the top of our lungs. I was this little kid, one of my first musical memories. I mean, I was barely able to speak, but this form of communication, I could speak eloquently. It was rock and roll. It felt amazing. As soon as it was over, I remember saying to my dad, play it again, play it again. You know, of course it was on the radio. He explained to me that it was REO Speedwagon, the Speedwagon. The same band who was behind one of my other favorite songs, Keep On Loving You.
Keep on loving you.
Again, one of the early memories I had of realizing that the same band sang the same 2 songs. He said, "I'll play the record for you when we get home." Previous to this, he would play me Keep On Loving You, but now this band had 2 songs that I loved, and I started laying down and listening to all of the songs on the record. High Infidelity became one of the first albums that I knew every single song by heart. I could sing every lyric. That really started my love for records as a little kid, you know, just discovering the world around me. First, I thought it looked like a big black Frisbee. I was kind of throwing it along one time. My dad taught me pretty quickly that that was out of bounds. The sound that came from that big black circle, it brought my little existence a few things. Curiosity, the feeling of invincibility. Most of all, though, it brought a feeling of just pure, unadulterated joy. It elicited these emotions that keep coming back to me every single day.
Heard it from another, you've been messing around.
From that point on, I was a fan of the Speedwagon. I mean, the power in their music was in the smorgasbord of beautiful melodies and the unique narratives interwoven at the core of the music. Kevin had this tremendous ability as a storyteller while keeping your toes tapping and your fingers snapping. As a kid, the music really did make you feel like you were 10 feet tall, like the Incredible Hulk. It's one thing that a lot of music critics of that day lost in translation. The bands like REO and Foreigner and Journey and Boston and Styx. They were so busy looking for the avant-garde, they forgot the purest form of rock and roll has always been about the ability to connect people to beautiful memories, you know, that make you want to dance. It's why we pass these bands and these classic songs, that tradition, to our own children. I mean, I've definitely done that. I talk about it all the time. The first concert I took my then 3-year-old son to was REO Speedwagon. It's actually on the 4th of July, about 10 years ago. I had an interview with Kevin before the show. My wife and I thought it would be cool to surprise our 2 little guys with concert and fireworks. Needless to say, after seeing their first live rock and roll show, they couldn't care less about the fireworks. Fireworks were in the show. I had my son on my shoulders and we were singing the song, and lo and behold, Kevin noticed us in the crowd. He made reference to us. I mean, my son was beyond elated. To this day, he talks about it all the time. And then after, the sound man gave the set list and guitar picks to my kids after the show. It was a memory that they will carry for the long haul. They still have them. They've framed them. What REO did that night is connected my kids and me. For that matter, the 6,000 people that were there, you can't put a price on that. REO is all over pop culture these days. Everyone can relate to the way that this song was used in Cobra Kai a few years back. Just like Daniel and Johnny, you can't help but sing to the top of your lungs when this song comes on. Just like I did with my own dad so many years ago. Just like I do with my own kids. You know, now that my dad's gone, I clean the memories like these and I try to pass those on to my kids. That's why Kevin Cronin and REO Speedwagon, they were inducted into the People's Hall of Fame a long time ago. I've had a chance to talk with Kevin many times. He's one of the best guys in the business, just a good guy. Kevin tells us the story behind Take It on the Run next. You're gonna love it. Now, as we go into this interview, I do wanna thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, who helps keep this channel going. Zenni is so unique in the experience you have when ordering glasses. At Zenni, you can choose your perfect look and then you can try them on virtually to see how you look before you buy. If you click on the info button right up here, you can get them for up to 80% off regular retail prices. It's the best price out there. Check it out today. Here's Kevin with the story.
Kevin, one of the first things I want to ask you, what was it for you that kicked open the door to your mind, made you want to pursue music, that kind of kicked that off? Do you remember?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was the opening chords of I Want to Hold Your Hand. Down, 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 down. I mean, to this day, the first thing that happens when the house lights go down at an REO Speedwagon concert is you hear those chords. And it's partially because, you know, it's a cool thing for the audience, but it's really because it just connects me with that moment right before I walk out there. And I've heard that intro to I Want to Hold Your Hand a million times, and every time I hear it, it just, my juices get flowing and I'm ready to rock.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something.
You saw it on Ed Sullivan, right?
I did.
It's amazing because about 80% of the musicians, when I ask them that question, they're like the Beatles and Ed Sullivan. It's like, if that moment wouldn't have happened, would rock and roll be what it have happened?
I don't know, man. I can't imagine the world without those moments, you know?
It just connected so many people. I mean, of course, I wasn't there. I wasn't even born yet, but I can just imagine. Ann Wilson of Heart was telling me that she just wanted to get closer to the TV to just be a part of that energy, you know?
Yeah.
Like so many musicians of my generation, it was seeing the Beatles play on Ed Sullivan.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
That was really the moment when the light bulb went on. But I think it was different in the case of myself and my sister because we wanted to do it. We didn't just want to be the girlfriends of the Beatles. We wanted to go out and be the Beatles.
Right.
Be the experience.
It's interesting because I've interviewed like 80 musicians and I swear like 80% of them say the Beatles.
That was a powerful moment, you know,
Yeah.
On television and for rock and roll in general. I mean, I think it was the first time rock had been shown just that way on TV. And it just opened up the tops of everyone's heads to the possibility of what could be.
I read somewhere or saw something where you said that you just wanted to get closer to the TV just to, you know,
yeah.
feel that energy and become that.
It was like a campfire, and the whole world was sitting around it. You know, we were all connected at that moment. I mean, everybody that I know from my generation of musicians, like you say, you know, it's a connection that we all have. We were all sitting there watching it in black and white going, holy cow, man. That's because, you know, up until then, there were singers, you know, there were like the Four Seasons, the groups that kind of wore matching clothes and did their choreography, and that was a thing. And there were the Brill Building songwriters who provided the material, and then there were the backing bands who you know, played the instruments. And up until then, I was taking guitar lessons, but I wasn't really kind of sure why. And when the Beatles came out, it was like the Maxell tape commercial.
Maxell, it's worth it.
My mind was blown because it was like, wait, these guys are playing the songs, they wrote the songs, they're singing the songs, these four guys are doing it all. And I was like, it just was so clear to me at that moment that that's what I wanted to do. Now, you know, I'm very fortunate that the path cleared in front of me and that the stars were lined up. But at that moment, there was no doubt in my mind that I would be sitting here right now talking to you about having a career as a musician.
Continues.
When I look back now, I go, the chances are so, I mean, they're infinitely small that this would happen. So I'm just so, you know, I'm just so thankful that I'm still doing today what I dreamed of doing when I was 12 years old watching Ed Sullivan.
Take It on the Run, top 5 hit, went to number 5. Another one of those songs just takes me right back. Tell me about recording that and putting that together.
I mean, well, that was the 1-2 punch that brought High Infidelity. It was doing okay with Keep on Loving You. And then when Taking on the Run came out, it's like all hell broke loose. But, you know, the record company, it's pretty funny. Our record company, first, they didn't want us to put Keep on Loving You on the record because they didn't think it was a hit.
Oh my gosh.
And they wanted, for the second, when it became a hit, they wanted the second single to be In Your Letter. And I was just like, guys, the second single is Take It on the Run. You know, at some point, you know, you just have to go, you know, it's nice to listen to what other people say and factor it in. But at some point, you know, I felt like, wait a minute, Keep on Loving You is the #1 record in the country. I think I've got the right to just go, this is what we want. And Gary and I were in agreement, and it was like, we're going for it. But Take It on the Run, it originally wasn't called Take It on the Run. I went out to Gary's house, as I used to do, and kind of go through all of his notebooks and demos, because he was like a mad scientist out there. You wouldn't see him for weeks. He'd be in the studio 24 hours a day, just churning out stuff. And, you know, like all of us, they weren't all gems. So I had to kind of go through it. That was kind of one of my roles in the band. We'd worked all day, and I'm kind of frustrating. And he goes, we didn't really come up with anything. And Gary's like, well, you know, I got this one slow one. I don't think it's really any good. It's a slow song. I'm like, well, let's hear it. Okay, I hear this. Heard it from a friend who, heard it from a friend who, heard it from another, you've been messing around. And I'm like, dude, that's the greatest opening line.
No kidding.
That not only that you've ever written, but I think I can honestly say, I mean, to me, the opening line of a song is so important. You know, to me, probably the best ever is, I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me.
Oh yeah, Norwegian Wood.
Norwegian Wood, you hear that line, and it's like, I just want to hear the rest of that song.
I once had a girl, or should I say?
That line sets you up for the story, right? You want to hear where it goes. And also, it's so indelibly in the psyche now of the world that whenever you say, well, I heard it from a friend. This has happened a million times. Well, I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who.
I was talking to my wife the other day, who's 10 years younger than me, and she was one of the few women in Wisconsin who was not an REO Speedwagon fan in the 80s. But that line, she said, when I think of REO Speedwagon, I think heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend. And just recently, Pitbull, he just did it. He just, him and Enrique just kind of...
Yeah, Enrique Iglesias.
They're singing together, and then it kind of goes into this thing, and I was like...
The tip of the hat.
That's pretty cool.
Heard it from another, you've been messing around.
Obviously, it's so sad that Gary passed away. You know, he was such a part of my life. It's, there's a book there, but just that he's not here to experience that. I think he would really be tickled, and hopefully he's somewhere, listening to it.
You're under the gun, so you're taking on the run.
It's amazing. Music has such power.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to ask you about there were 4 top 40 hits from this album. In your letter, it's a fun song. I hear it on Sirius XM, the 80s, all the time. It's very much got an early 60s or even a late 50s kind of vibe to it. Tell me about putting that together.
Well, when Gary first brought the song in, it really didn't sound like an REO Speedwagon song to me, but there was something it kind of felt like a doo-wop thing. And so I kind of just started going, in your letter, ooh, in your letter.
Yeah.
In your letter, it was such a doo-wop. I thought, well, wait a minute, if we're going to do this, Gary kind of wanted to take it and try to turn it into a rock song, and it just wasn't working. It just sounded kind of dorky or something. So I'm like, all right, dude, how about if we just forget about trying to make it sound like an REO Speedwagon song and just go for what this song is. It's basically a Ronette song. So then we kind of just went through the kitchen sink in there and just went totally 50s on it. It fit on the record thematically.
Right.
Musically, it's like from a different place, but the thing, I think, one of the things about this record is the fact that all of us were kind of going through similar, experiences. All of our relationships just disintegrated simultaneously. I think we've just been on the road so long that all the women in our lives just went, you know what? Screw you, So we were all kind of in that place. So the songs, it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't a planned kind of concept album, but there was a continuity in the themes of the songs that...
Hence High Infidelity.
Well, there's the title that I came up with, and the band looked at me like, are you kidding? We cannot possibly call this album High Infidelity. Are you out of your mind? But what made In Your Letter fit on the record, because it was so out there musically, was it was talking about the same, Keep on Loving You, Take It on the Run, In Your Letter, the same story, just from different perspectives.
Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about this 80s sing-along classic, one of the greatest first lines ever. REO Speedwagon, what are your memories of this band, of this song, of this album? Let's have a great discussion and celebrate great 80s rock below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. And as I put these 3 fingers up, you know exactly what I mean. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth. It's what it's all about.